So Trump is running a victory lap after this Alaska summit, and I'm not sure exactly why, because it doesn't seem to me like he actually won anything. Like if you look at what his stated objectives were and what he got out of this as opposed to what Putin got out of this, Putin seems like a clear winner. Okay, let's start here with this. This is Trump's tweet or Truth Social post afterwards. A great and very successful day in Alaska. The meeting with President Vladimir Putin of Russia went very well, as did a late night phone call with President Zelenskyy of Ukraine and various European leaders, including the highly respected Secretary General of NATO. It was determined by all that the best way to end the horrific war between Russia and Ukraine is to go directly to a peace agreement, which would end the war and not a mere ceasefire agreement. No, that wasn't determined by all. That was something that Putin said that he wanted, that you kind of went with after 155 days of Putin stiff-arming you, telling you, like, I'm not doing it. Okay, which oftentimes do not hold up. President Zelenskyy will be coming to D.C., the Oval Office, on Monday afternoon. If all works out, we will then schedule a meeting with President Putin. Potentially millions of people's lives will be saved. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That was a big concession tweet. I mean, that's what that amounted to. Okay. White House posted this at the day of the summit. We made some great progress today. We had an extremely productive meeting and many points were agreed to. Okay, but you agreed to points that you weren't agreeing to beforehand. And I'm not trying to pick on Trump. I'm just saying, like think about what he was saying beforehand and what he was saying afterwards. And he was just agreeing with Putin. On the scale of 1 to 10, I give today a 10. Fox News is quoting Trump regarding his meeting with Putin. But why would it be a 10 if Putin didn't agree to anything that you had asked for beforehand? Okay, so Vladimir Putin wanted a world stage. This is Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Liberty. Donald Trump wanted a peace deal. Russian leader got his. U.S. president did not. But like I put in my thumbnail the other day, this was a thumbnail for this particular, like what we knew about it after the fact. Trump wanted a Nobel Prize. Putin wanted time. That's what Putin wanted. He wanted extra time. Putin got time. Trump's nowhere closer to the Nobel Prize. In fact, I would argue that he's further away because of the way that things were handled, where Putin's just stalling for time. Okay, Russia became the first country. I'll give you an analogy of what happened here, because Trump raised Putin's stature on the world stage, right? Putin was a pariah in the world, kind of shunned by everyone except maybe the BRICS. And like Trump rolled out the red carpet for him. It's kind of like this. Russia became the first country to formally recognize the Taliban's rule in Afghanistan, boosting the group's quest for legitimacy. Well, Trump just did that kind of thing for Putin, raising Putin's legitimacy when he's an ICC indicted war criminal for what he's done to the people of Ukraine. Putin demanded Ukraine withdraw from Donbass as a condition for ending Russia's war. He knows that they can't do that. He wants the Ukrainians to give up the fortress belt that is holding them from invading across essentially open fields all the way to Kharkiv, their second biggest city. They can't give up that fortress belt. He knows that they can't give up that fortress belt. And so that's what he's asking for as a condition to coming to some kind of peace terms. No, but he's not sitting down and beginning the ceasefire that Trump and Zelenskyy agreed to 155 days ago. He told Trump that he could freeze the rest of the front line if his core demands were met. That freeze the front line if his core demands are met. Do you understand what that means, freeze the front line? Freeze the rest of the front line means that he gets to keep 3/4 of those other territories, and that's just ridiculous. So if he gets this demand of the fortress belt, he will just keep 3/4 of Zaporizhia and Kherson, and instead of all of it, at least for now. It's just ridiculous. CNN reports that Trump told Zelenskyy and NATO leaders Putin does not want a ceasefire, preferring a comprehensive deal to the end of the war. But Trump was the one pushing for the ceasefire, and Zelenskyy agreed to it, and then Putin kind of agreed to it and never lived up to it. During the call, Trump said, "I believe a quick peace deal is better than a ceasefire because Putin will only agree to this." That's why he believes that. How is that winning? Bloomberg writes that Trump may be pressuring Zelenskyy to cede territory in exchange for a truce. Zelenskyy can't do that. He knows that, but he's going to go down that path anyway. Hannity was interviewing Trump, said, based on today, what is your advice to Zelenskyy? Trump says, make a deal. Russia's a very big power, and he goes on, right? That's not winning. That's knuckling under. It's really embarrassing. Like, Trump, how are you letting Putin become the alpha over you? Like, that's really what's taking place here. The U.S. president said that they got along great, that they agreed on territorial exchanges and security guarantees, but immediately shifted responsibility to Ukrainian President Zelenskyy. Oh, so if there's not a peace agreement, then it's because Zelenskyy, he's the obstacle now. And that's what Putin did to Zelenskyy in this meeting. Now it's really up to President Zelenskyy to get it done, he said. Trump announced plans for a trilateral summit, but then Putin's assistant Ushakov contradicted this claim, saying that they never talked about a trilateral summit. I think we're pretty close to the end, Trump said, though he added a crucial caveat. Ukraine, of course, has to agree to this. Now, that Ukraine has to agree to this is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because he didn't just try to make a deal like a Yalta-like deal without him, but it's a bad thing because it puts the onus now on Ukraine to be the one that's willing to make peace when Russia seems so willing and it's Ukraine in the way. And that's what Putin was trying to do. Now, there's also withdrawal from Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson oblasts, including areas not fully under Russian control, or at least in Donetsk and Luhansk, that would be the case. And then abandoning NATO membership aspirations. Why? I mean, I'm trying to understand why. Ending martial, like how does Russia get a vote in that? Ending martial law in Ukraine and holding elections, which is one of the most ludicrous claim, holding elections, as if your $2 billion that you spent on a rigged election in Russia, you have the moral authority to say that. Limitations on the size of Ukrainian armed forces so that they can run over you very quickly next time, and recognition of Russian as an official language on par with Ukrainian. Okay, well, at least they came off one of those, and that's this. Sources tell Newsmax that they're willing to drop the objection to teaching Ukrainian language in Ukraine. Oh boy, well that's great. That's the concession. Sky News, Che Bowles from RT was talking about how Sky News claims that Trump was humiliated by Putin. Really? They really despise the idea of peace, don't they? Yeah, but he really didn't get the better end of the deal here. I mean, he raised the stature of Putin, agreed to everything that Putin said, and didn't have Putin agree to anything that he was bringing to, like, what did Trump get? And you can tell that this is the case because you see what the Russians are actually saying. Here's Maria Zakharova, the foreign ministry spokeswoman. Western media are in a state that can be described as mania, turning into complete madness. For 3 years, they told stories about Russia's isolation, and today they saw a red carpet rolled out to welcome the Russian president in the USA. Why are we rolling out the red carpet for Putin? Now, I understand he's the leader of this other nation and you're trying to be diplomatic, but why are we doing that for him? Okay. Medvedev presented his glowing analysis. And if Medvedev is actually like positive about what you're doing, it's bad for Ukraine. It's good for Russia, right? I mean, that's pretty fair. He even managed to avoid nuclear threats this time. First of all, he said, a full-fledged mechanism between Russia and the United States, the highest level, has been restored. In and of itself, talking isn't necessarily bad. The president of Russia personally and in detail presented to the U.S. president our conditions, as if we didn't know your conditions. Like, this is what has been going on the entire time. All Putin's done is present his conditions. Following almost 3 hours of talks, the head of the White House declined to escalate pressure on Ukraine, declined to do the sanctions that you said you were going to do. Why? Like, shouldn't it be like, you know what? Yeah, unless you're coming to the ceasefire table, these sanctions are going on. Because that's what he said last week. So for all of you that are wondering, like, where are the sanctions? Doesn't look like they're coming because he's been lured into this. Let's have these talks. He's just following that. And I don't want to get in the way of that. So sanctions aren't actually coming. It's very sad to see. I mean, like, really. Okay, important. The meeting proved that negotiations are possible without preconditions and simultaneously with the continuation of the special military operation. So nothing stopping. Nothing stopping. What did Trump win here? He didn't really win a lot. It's still going on. Most importantly, both sides directly place responsibility for achieving future results on the talks and ending hostilities on Kyiv. This right here this is Putin's win. This is not Trump's win. Okay, Putin has supplied, this is Alexander Dugin, Putin's brain. Putin has supplied Trump with solid, considerable documents on Russia's history, proving the Ukraine is a fake. Again, that's the same kind of thing that he was telling Tucker Carlson. It's a made up country. It's not real, that sort of thing. Okay. And Orban is happy about this. The Hungarian prime minister rejoiced on X that at last, the two biggest nuclear powers have stopped exchanging hostile messages. Now this has come to an end. Today, the world is safer than it was yesterday. No, it's actually in greater danger, because what this war has proven is that if you want to act badly toward your neighbor, all you need is a nuke, and then you can do what Russia's doing to Ukraine. Because if Russia didn't have a nuke, it would have been rolled by now. Okay, even Boris Johnson is saying the most vomit-inducing episode in all of the tawdry history of international diplomacy. That's Boris Johnson, who's a good buddy of Trump's. Okay. All right, so here is John Bolton talking about this. He's the former advisor. They famously had a falling out, so I'm not saying that they're like friends or anything, but Putin got almost everything that he wanted. This is what Bolton had to say.
I think Trump did not lose, but Putin clearly won.
Yeah.
Trump didn't come away with anything except more meetings.
Yep, that's it. Like, that's all that he won was, I'll get another meeting. Okay, that and $5 will buy a cup of coffee. I mean, that's all that is.
Putin has, I think, gone a long way to reestablishing the relationship, which I've always believed was his key goal. He has escaped sanctions. He's not facing a ceasefire. The next meeting is not set. Zelenskyy was not told any of this before this press conference. It's far from over. But I'd say Putin achieved most of what he wanted. Trump achieved very little. And I will say one other thing. I thought Trump looked very tired up there. I mean, very tired. Not disappointed, tired. And we'll have to reflect on what that means.
So what did Putin walk away with? He evaded sanctions because Trump isn't going to put sanctions on until like after the next meeting, and then after the next meeting. That's what it appears to be. And so Trump's, I mean, running a victory lap doesn't make sense here. Lavrov shows up in a USSR jumper and sending a message. U.S. soldiers lay out a red carpet for Putin. It was a bad look. Putin got a private limo ride with Trump. Putin spoke first at the presser. Putin lied without any pushback. He put out all his demands, and then what? Got no pushback. No ceasefire, no deal, no sanctions. What did Trump win exactly? Fox News reporter Jackie Heinrich talked about this with like at the feeling in the room at the presser. The way that it felt in the room was not good. It did not seem like things went well. Let's just listen to her for a moment.
Happened back there. It was just very unusual, atypical, and I think we're all awaiting, the readout, because the way that it felt in the room was not good. It did not seem like things went well, and it seemed like Putin came in and steamrolled, got right into what he wanted to say, and got his photo next to the president and then left. Of course, that is only the piece of the picture that we have right now, and certainly President Trump, who is the host and who is the president, would not want to, I think, enable something that would make him look weak.
Yeah, and that's really part of the problem. He doesn't want to do anything that makes him look weak. Look, the Russians didn't even stay for lunch, right? A lunch was supposed to be held in honor of His Excellency Vladimir Putin. Luncheon in honor of Vladimir Putin. His Excellency Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, which is going to include a green salad with champagne vinaigrette and filet mignon with brandy peppercorn sauce and halibut Olympia and creme brulee. Sounds nice, but like they didn't even stick around for it. Garry Kasparov commented the luncheon was canceled, but Putin and Russian propaganda got a free lunch. Unless Trump quickly reverses this humiliation, and it was a humiliation, it really was. With military aid to Ukraine and crushing sanctions on Russia, the submission is complete. I just don't see how what Trump like. If you think that Trump got some kind of deal, put it in the comments below. I want to know what you think that Trump actually got out of this, because it doesn't seem like he got anything. U.S. First Lady Melania Trump sent this letter to Putin addressing over 19,000 documented Ukrainian child abductions from occupied territories. Shouldn't that be like thing number one that you're discussing before anything else? Like, hey, before we can even talk about you having a ceasefire from our crushing sanctions and all the military aid that we're supplying to Ukraine, give the kids back, and then we'll talk about the peace term. Like, that should be where we're starting at. Okay. This is Timothy Milovanov saying Putin got a propaganda win. I think that's right. The U.S. looked weak. I'm afraid that's right, and I hate to say that. He destabilized Europe, made no concessions, paid no price, no sanctions enforced. I have to agree with all of that. Main points from Anton Goroshenko, main points from the statement by European leaders following the meeting of Trump and Putin. 1, Ukraine must have ironclad security guarantees. 2, no limitation should be placed on Ukraine's armed forces, the size of the armed forces, or on its cooperation with third countries. 3, Russia cannot have a veto against Ukraine's pathway to EU or NATO. Like, so since when do they get to choose who you get to ally with? Our support to Ukraine will continue. And parts of the full statement, as President Trump said, there's no deal until there's a deal. We are clear that Ukraine must have ironclad security guarantees. And now they're talking about some kind of like NATO-like guarantees without NATO. And we had that. It was called the Budapest Memorandum, but nobody actually supported that. But this one will work, right? Okay. Russia cannot have a veto against Ukraine's pathway to EU and NATO. It will be up to Ukraine to make decisions on its territory. International borders must not be challenged by force. And if they are, and you allow that to happen, you're destroying the rule of law, and that's what this amounts to. As long as the killing in Ukraine continues, we stand ready to uphold the pressure on Russia. Okay, so that's where the European leaders are. European leaders are calling for this NATO-like security guarantees for Ukraine. Why not NATO guarantees, says Michael McFaul. Putin can never be allowed to have a veto over who joins NATO. Fair enough. I agree with that. Jessica Berlin says for the past decade, European leaders have been caught in a reactive loop, shocked when Trump behaves exactly as he always does, relieved when he momentarily pivots, and he did look like he was momentarily pivoting. Like there was a little zag, and then the zag kind of went away when Witkoff went to see Putin again, and then they're like back under the trance. I mean, I don't know how to say it better than that. Paralyzed when he inevitably reverts. This is not grand strategy, it's political whiplash. Sure feels like it. And then here tonight, countless calories will be burned, powering the brains of analysts and political commentators, and millions of keystrokes spent explaining what happened in Alaska. Yet sometimes a simple diagram explains it better. And I showed you this diagram. Set deadline for Russia. The deadline expires. Putin suggests meaningless negotiations. Negotiations fail. And then you set deadlines. And then the deadline expires. And then meaningless. Yeah, you get the idea. Okay. The Financial Times reports that Trump has effectively sided with Putin. That's what it seems like. Pressuring Ukraine to accept a capitulation-style peace deal, which Ukraine can't accept. European leaders will be right behind Zelenskyy not accepting that. Ukrainian officials called this sharp shift in stance after the Alaska summit a stab in the back. And like Trump saying, they're all agreeing with me. We're getting on great. Like, right? Look at this in his tweet. It was determined by all that the best way to end the horrific war between Russia and Ukraine is to go directly to a peace agreement. No, that's what Putin said. That's where you're getting that from. Time for the EU to really step up if they want Ukraine to win this war. I think that's very fair as well. Now, Zelenskyy will be traveling to Washington on Monday to meet with President Trump and discuss ways to end the war. And with that, according to Reuters, the Coalition of the Willing will gather as a video conference on tomorrow, that's Sunday, and then on Monday, European leaders together with Zelenskyy will arrive in Washington for a meeting with the U.S. president. So I think they're trying to prevent another bad White House meeting like when Vice President Vance sabotaged it with, have you ever said thank you once? Right? Okay, so that's where we are. Okay, folks, I just field tested something today. I did this this video which was a live stream, which I posted this. I'm hosting a live stream at 12 EST, 4 p.m. GMT. You can engage in chat or you can call in. So I'm going to be doing this for a little while and see how this works. So if you click on this on my posts, tinyurl.com, Gerdes, August 16th. You click on that. It'll bring you to Podbean. And Podbean, if you have the Podbean app on your phone, in my next live stream, which will be Monday morning at 10 a.m. EST, and that's for +4 is 2 p.m. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. And then you have to calculate your time from there. You can call in, talk to me, just like, let's have a conversation. It was so much more enjoyable to just talk to people about, like, what's your question? Let's talk about it. And then other people could interact with the question. So we had both the live stream chats going, and I would try to answer those that were important or specific. And then at the same time, we're hearing other people give their views. So please download that app if you want to be part of this, and it's under posts. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for your time, my friends. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.